Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Rick Moe from Rick Moe Productions and Positive Street Talk. I'm sitting here with this lovely young lady here. Her name is Miss Dr. Dorothy Salem. Dr. Salem is the curator of the Woodland Cemetery. And that's where we are. We're located right now at the Woodland Library in the neighborhood where I grew up. This is a brand new library. It's great to be here. It's great to be back home, back in my old neighborhood. But Dr. Salem got some good news for us about the cemetery. Now, I grew up across the street from the cemetery, right? But I never knew about the Black history that was in the Woodland Cemetery. We always thought that there was only Caucasian people in the cemetery. That's the way we thought, Dr. Salem, when we were growing up.
That's okay.
That's what we thought.
I've heard it. I've heard it.
Yeah.
We have one of our board members
Yeah.
at New Gospel Church. She thought it was a white cemetery.
Yeah.
So. Then I came along.
So Dr. Salem has some very, very interesting things to say about the Black people that's actually buried in the Woodland Cemetery. And you'll be surprised of who's over there, who's there. You're going to be surprised. So Dr. Salem, turn it over to you now.
Ta-da. Okay. I think I want to begin with one of the first Black burials was a barber who was an abolitionist.
Okay.
Had no headstone till we raised money for a headstone. And Mr. Jackson, was very, let's put it, motivated by the dollar. In 1842, he actually went up to Canada with an attorney, Wilson, after which East 55th used to be called Wilson.
Is that
with
right?
2 L's, And he was a judge during the time of the Civil War, Hiram Wilson. And he went up there as an attorney representing a slave owner. And Mr. Jackson was up there to talk to 2 fugitives who were able to come to Cleveland, and then they went up to Buffalo, New York. And those 2 fugitives were lured back to Cleveland by Mr. Jackson. So never leave a headstone undone. That's my advice, because someone like me is going to come along, and I have, the ability to put something on your headstone. And it was abolitionist to traitor. He was our first Black burial. A Black barber, successful, involved with abolition. That's why he had credibility with the 2 fugitives, that were lured back and then seized. Well, they eventually, one escaped. So you didn't have him as a witness. The other one was given a writ of habeas corpus to get out of jail. And the attorneys worked to get him freed. And so eventually they did make it to Canada, which was the only place to be free. And by the way, this is what I love. That particular attorney had a warrant for his arrest for kidnapping.
Wow.
I love that. Somebody that becomes a judge, here in Cleveland. So, there was a sense of justice with that case. But that was before the Fugitive Slave Law. And see, after the Fugitive Slave Law, you had the federal government making payments to sheriffs or people who reported, on fugitives.
Black fugitives.
Yes.
And a lot of them were here in Cleveland. Black
fugitives. This was a good place to come. You've heard of the white abolitionist John Brown, who was quite radical, wanted to have a revolution to overthrow slavery. He came to Cleveland, and there were warrant posters all over Cleveland giving a reward. And he felt safe enough to walk the streets of Cleveland because he knew this was an abolitionist city. Okay, so I just want to make it really clear this was an abolitionist city.
Okay.
But we have so many people in Woodland Cemetery that tell the full story about the Underground Railroad. We had free blacks that came here for opportunities, and probably the best opportunity they had was a barber. And they had businesses where they acquired wealth. And John Brown, who is the one that I did research on, that's how I got involved with the cemetery, because he's buried there. He actually has an obelisk, and it faces Arbor Park. And I say, every time I put a wreath on his grave, I say, do you know who's here? Okay,
Wow.
This is a story. I mean, he was a free black when he came here. He came here with a group of Quakers, and they were called Hicksite Quakers, who were radical Quakers, not the peace-loving ones you hear about.
Right.
They were radical. And so they went on to Indiana. He stayed here, okay, because he was able to establish businesses in the downtown hotels that were just developing. And he was one of the conductors and station masters of the Underground Railroad. He had 13 people at his house at one time, okay, hiding them until it was safe to get to Lake Erie. John Brown, the barber.
Wow.
And his two sons served in the Civil War. One of them established a barbering business down in Akron. So you've got John Brown. You also have right across from John Brown, kitty corner, a man named Alexander Bowman, who came here with his brother as slaves.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Alexander, well, his brother Jeremiah became a preacher, but Alexander started buying up land. And he bought up all of these buildings that he then rented. So he was a big landlord. Alexander Bowman stayed here despite the fact that he really technically, okay, was a fugitive slave. So, you know, he could have been recaptured at any time, but he was an upstanding leader in the community. He would give money when some of these fugitive slaves would need bail money and things like that, or lawyers, and he would give money to that. He gave money to the first colored school, which was right on Public Square, and it was John Brown and Alexander Bowman were the main funders of that school.
And these people are buried right in the cemetery.
Right in the cemetery.
I grew up, I could look out of my window. I could walk out my door and look at this cemetery.
Yes. And by the way, we have a big sign, okay, down by the gatehouse, which was reconstructed during COVID.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember, it was all down in, yeah, it had a fire and it was reassembled, okay, during COVID. And so our gatehouse is just lovely and beautiful. Right by the gatehouse, we have etched bricks that bring out the names and dates of life of 24 people involved with the Underground Railroad.
Wow.
And we have a sign up, big sign, that will tell you a little bit about them, a little biographical information, and tell you where in the cemetery they are. And so we try to make things permanent, you know, so people can come and they can learn about that. And if you want to go to the website for the cemetery, you can pull these forms up, okay, for your information and print them off yourself. So we've got Sarah Bagby Johnson, who was the last fugitive slave in the North, who was sent back to the South before the Civil War started. Now, why was she sent back in an abolitionist city? Okay, the powers that be were scared to death that we were being used by the Southern slave owner, to
Mhm.
start the Civil War,
Oh.
because it would have breached the fugitive slave law
Mhm.
if we hadn't done that. But she goes back, and within months,
She ran away again.
no, she was rescued by the Union Army.
Oh.
And then her owner was put into jail. So, and then she came back to Cleveland.
And all of these people.
Yes, all of these people.
They're buried right down here.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
we have more. Eliza Bryant, who was one of the main movers and shakers, getting the community together, okay, to care for the elderly.
Mhm.
Now, why did the elderly need care? Because a lot of them had no families after slavery.
Mhm.
So if they came up here and they were free, but they didn't have the families that they would have had in any other circumstance. So they started very small, okay, with I think about 6 people, and they contributed their own time, their old furniture for the house, and it just kept expanding and expanding. And eventually, okay, it takes on the name of Eliza Bryan, but it's Eliza Bryan. When they renamed it, she got a T at the end of her name. And so it's gone into history books as Eliza Bryant. All of the papers that she assigned legally are at East Cleveland Library, and it's Bryan.
Wow.
So, that's something that I've discovered since we've done this, and it's going to surprise a lot of people. But again, it shows what community can do. There were no grants to get for this. It was just going out and getting donations of food and clothing, donating your time. And that's how it started. And look at what it became. It was the longest living home for aged colored people in the nation.
Wow.
When it was disbanded.
And
it broke my heart.
these are people that could have very well lived in the same neighborhood here where I grew up.
They did.
Yeah, they were from this area. Most of the black people that are buried over there was in the Woodland Central area.
Yeah, they were. And that's why it's important to understand the significance of Central neighborhood, because that was the area of black residents. Okay, and that's what segregation does. We weren't segregated then. John Brown lived down, on Seneca Avenue, which was West 3rd, right around the corner from the first physician in the city of Cleveland, who was a white man, Dr. David Long. Dr. David Long founded the Cleveland Anti-Slavery Society in 1836. And so you're dealing with constant intermingling. And John Brown the barber used to have fugitives come in to his barber shop after it had closed. And he would take the fugitives to the lake in the carriages that would carry all the customers that would come. So I say, I wonder if they were searching carriages in those days. No, because it was usually white people that were
in the carriages. Right.
So and there was such a network to communicate for the Underground Railroad here in Cleveland. A lot of people had jobs as porters at the Union Terminal, and also as waiters in the fine hotels. And the waiters would overhear discussions at tables, when somebody would come into town, and the porters would know who's coming into town. And that's the way, to me, the Underground Railroad was mostly, a black story. And that's why I got to get the book written. I got to get the book written because nobody else is going to say that, because you always deal, who's the founder of this organization and that. Okay, yes, it's crucial. This is probably the only interracial cooperative movement before the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
It was the Underground Railroad.
yeah, was the Underground Railroad. And here in Cleveland, you had some of the very most militant people. We had what was called a vigilance committee. And Maria Ambush is buried in our cemetery.
Maria Ambush. Who is she?
Well, William Ambush, her husband, they lived down on Garden. Okay. It was called Garden in those days, and around East 40th. And their house was used as one of the stations in the Underground Railroad. Matter of fact, Lucy Bagby, when she came in as a fugitive, she was with the Ambushes first. And then she went to a congressman-elect, a white guy that was Riddle, okay, that was elected to Congress. And then he had second thoughts. He said, oh God, if something goes bad here, you know, I'm in trouble. Right. You know, a congressman breaking the law. And so then she was taken to a jeweler's house. And that's where they came to find her. Okay, so it's a complex network. Okay, but it worked. It worked very well.
Well, let me ask you this. What about Buffalo Soldiers? Are there any Buffalo Soldiers?
Well, that's later. You know, that's after the Civil War.
Oh, that's right. That is after the Civil War.
Yeah, but exactly. We do. We do have them in our cemetery as well. But we have the only monument to the USCT, United States Colored Troops, those that served in the Navy and Army. And it's in the middle of our cemetery by the flagpole. And it's got a saying by Frederick Douglass on one side, and then it lists all the names, okay, on the other side. And one of them was an ancestor of, I'm going to forget the baseball player, Hank Aaron.
Hank Aaron. And his ancestor lived here.
Well, yeah. I mean, they're buried at Woodland, and they lived here to be buried here. But we have so many stories. One that interested me was he served in the Navy, but it was before the Emancipation Proclamation. Now, the people know the Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves. It only freed the slaves in the areas in rebellion. It didn't free the slaves in the border states like Maryland and others. Okay, it freed them in an area that we had no control over. It was a political document. But what else did the Emancipation Proclamation do? It called in Blacks to serve as soldiers and Navy men, okay, in the Civil War. Now that was January of 1863. And this man served in the Navy in 1861. So I got in contact with one of his descendants and asked, I said, was he very light? You know, so we're figuring, okay, the NI, that he probably passed, you know, but nevertheless, he's going to go up to Canada and he marries, okay, another person in our cemetery, whose family escaped there when she was just a toddler. So they escaped from Kentucky and went up there to Canada. And he goes up to Canada, he meets her, and they come back here. And so they're both buried here.
Wow.
And it is, I mean, the stories are so intertwined and interesting. And it's not just the Civil War period that we have. We have the emergence of Cleveland leaders in the Black community, okay? We have John P. Green, who becomes an attorney, and then he runs for office. And then when he is in the Ohio House, he proposes Labor Day. He is known as the father of Ohio's Labor Day.
He's buried in our cemetery.
Do you I mean, that's what
Wow.
I said. I kept saying, waiting for someone to recognize him, and it was never happening. So I wrote a grant. We have a memorial garden and a big sign, okay, in section 49, okay, that you can go read about him. Oh, he's amazing.
Mm.
Okay, he's amazing. Then you get into family history. His father was a slave, but his father was a skilled artisan in North Carolina. Okay. And that community in North Carolina, and I have to be honest, a lot of these things just become learning experiences. I have a PhD, but you're always learning, always learning.
Mm-hmm.
And the communities, the free Black communities in North Carolina, even though there were state laws that forbade this and said you can't do this, they had relative freedom.
Mm-hmm.
They were respected because they had skills that were needed by the white community, lots of interaction, family relationships. Um, for example, his wife, John P. Green's mother, okay, came from Fayetteville, which is a walking distance from where they were located. And in Fayetteville, she was 7/8 Scottish.
Mm.
She had red hair, green
Mm-hmm.
eyes. That's his mom.
Mm.
Okay. She married
Mm-hmm.
a man who was enslaved who felt so bad about it, he worked harder and harder to pay for his own freedom. But the relationship there, okay, where he could earn money and
Right.
buy his freedom, and they kept their word. I mean, there's a certain degree of honor within the community.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably heard of Charles Chestnut,
Yes.
the
Yes.
Chestnut, the
Yeah.
writer.
Right.
His
It's a
family
school
was
named
from
after him over in the
Fayetteville.
Kinsman area.
Yeah,
Yeah.
his family was from Fayetteville. They were friends with John P. Green's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They came here to Cleveland after John P. Green and his family came to Cleveland. So the story of Cleveland is not just of freedom seekers coming here for freedom and getting to Canada. The story is also of free Blacks
Free
coming
blacks.
from all these
Right.
areas looking at Cleveland as a place of freedom. And we have
Wow.
them. We have Black businessmen like Samuel Clayton. Okay. He, okay, founded a sofa company. He had a roller rink. He had a movie house. You know, it was, now
Mm.
that's during segregation.
Mm.
So they made the most of the situation
Right.
they had.
Right.
But during the 19th century, okay, up until I'd say about the 1870s, Cleveland was fluid, okay, and people lived everywhere, okay. When you start to see segregation was around 1890. You've probably heard of the Supreme Court case, Plessy versus Ferguson, okay, that segregated. Mm-hmm. It was for a smoking car and mm-hmm. car on a railroad train. But that then took on dimensions allowing the principle of segregation. It started to spread. And so you're going to see that happen almost everywhere, okay? But still, it's not, you know, segregated that much, okay? You still had people living in all these communities.
So it was a mixture. It was like a melting pot. It was
Yeah.
Black and white people all living together mm-hmm. and communicating.
Yeah. But I mean, once you start seeing some of those changes, came with industrialization. And then you had immigrants coming into Cleveland. And then the immigrants, some of these immigrant groups would take over the niches that were occupied by the Blacks, like waiters.
Mm-hmm.
And
mm-hmm.
okay. And then you'd have barbers.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And then you have the union movement that comes in. And then that keeps Blacks out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so these things start happening with industrialization and more urbanization occurring, you know, but yeah. And I mean, you could still probably look at deeds if you own a house here, Okay, look at your deed, original deed for your house, and you may see what's called a restrictive covenant that prevented you from selling to people, Hebrews, they would call them, or Negroes. Okay, so you were looking at the prohibition. It's your private property, and it would prohibit you from selling it to those two groups. So there's lots of history here in Cleveland, and it really needs. It hasn't always been the way it is, you know. You probably remember when you were growing up, you probably had physicians that lived down the street and
Yeah.
your dentists.
Actually, right next door to the old library was a dentist, a
Yeah.
big house,
Yeah.
and was a dentist right there. I can't remember his name, but that was a dentist, a big, beautiful home right next door to the old library. Matter of fact, it wasn't next door. It was on this side of the library, because this side of the library was the Griswold Playground, is where we are sitting right now, where this building is built. And on this side of it was this side of the library, then the house, then the playground. So it was right over here. And across the street was a doctor's office.
Well, when we talk about the time period where free blacks were coming here as the city of choice, okay, we had a dentist from Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia was known as the city of brotherly love. That was the center of the free black community in the 19th century, 1800s. Well, what started to happen in the city of brotherly love? The free black community that had fine houses and fine pianos and everything, just like Tulsa. Okay, remember what happened with Tulsa? That area was upscale. Okay, they owned their businesses and cultured and everything. And then you had people coming in, okay, that couldn't find jobs or that. And so you had mobs that started, okay, in 1848, we had a major, race riot in Philadelphia. Well, when you've a couple generations living there, acquiring wealth, social status, and everything else, you think you want to worry about that? No. Mr. Wilson, Joseph Wilson, came here to live. He, on 22nd Street, bought a big house, and he established his dental practice in that house. His daughter married a Reconstruction senator here in Cleveland, and the wedding, was reported on in all of the black press throughout the United States. So, I mean, you had major things going on here, but they chose to be here because they had opportunities. It was safe, and they could move about. They could acquire wealth and property. Oh, a story in our cemetery too. A woman named Susan Reynolds came here to live at 10 years of age. She had a guardian. Her father gave her a bunch of property to be held in trust for her here. At that time, she was the largest landowner in Cleveland. Her father was a Mississippi plantation master. She was, part of the black community. And so it kind of blows your mind when you look at individual stories. I knew that the area of Central State, Wilberforce, was one of those communities where in the summer, plantation masters would bring their black wives and children. And they would let the children stay up here for education. And you say, that's interesting. But I mean, it breaks down these barriers showing that human beings kind of worked within a context of restriction, you know, and Susan Reynolds, again, was very wealthy because of all this ownership of land. And she married, I believe her married name is Lee. And then her daughter, I think, was married to one of the Wills, of Will's funeral home. And I go, okay, all these connections again, if you follow the family.
Wow.
It's really interesting to learn about this. And I said, and why wasn't she listed in the list of free Black property owners in 1860? She was around 10 years of age, but nevertheless, that was her land being held in trust. And so that's a question I have to find out. It's just one of those things.
So even though some of these plantation owners, they were white slave owners, they had children by Black slaves, they still found out a way to take care of their Black children and make them wealthy.
We're dealing with individuals here.
Okay, yes, some of them, not all of them.
Individuals.
Some of them.
And some of them, that's how the free Black community became very light-skinned, to the point of, when I was doing my research, from 1890 to 1920, during Jim Crow, a lot of the Black women's clubs would not admit
darker women,
the blue vein test. They were called blue vein society.
Wow, because
and
they were lighter.
I said, and you're just reinforcing it. But again, that's, it was a context of society. And so, and that's how they became.
And it's so many Black wealthy, and not all wealthy, people that's buried in this cemetery, in the Woodland Cemetery.
Like John Brown didn't come here rich.
Right.
He was smart in how he managed his businesses. He was in the biggest hotel downtown, the New England Hotel. He had the barbershop there. And he had it in others before that and after that, because it burned down in the late 1850s. But they acquired wealth, and what did they do with that wealth? They bought property. John Brown had property in Toledo. Alexander Bowman came here as a fugitive slave, invested in property, and then became a large property owner, and used his money for the Black community, for the needs. That's a good story to tell. That they didn't just acquire wealth.
Right.
And John Brown's stepdaughter went to Oberlin. She was one of the first Black graduates from their ladies department. So, and she married William Howard Day, who established the first Black newspaper here in Cleveland. I mean, this could go on and on. I mean, this is connected to this and this. And William Howard Day established the Black newspaper, Alien American. So when you look at that title, what does that mean? That everything wasn't perfect.
Right.
And Day and his wife, during 1854, I believe, they left Cleveland and went up to Canada, because as much as you did, you would still encounter, you could have the best education and act the best and dress the best and have a big house, but you would encounter at some point, a barrier or a comment, and so those who were activists and had a lot of their dreams dashed, they said, we don't need you. We're going to go and establish our own colony up there in Canada. So I understand that's nationalism. Okay. And usually nationalism comes about after you're trying all these things and you start hitting a glass ceiling or
Right,
wall
right.
and you say, what are we working for here? You know? And William Howard Day then became an emigrationist, meaning leave the United States. Some went to Liberia during that time.
Black people in
Yeah,
Liberia?
Liberia in Africa.
Liberian, oh.
Yeah. And it was named,
Oh.
keep in mind, the capital's Monrovia, okay? Because it's named after our President Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so everything's connected, isn't it?
Wow.
But that's what I love people to just begin. I'm going to show you a couple. We have these coloring books for children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they're up on our website. And whenever we have events, we bring them for sale. I think they're $2.50 or something like that. But it's something that has real facts, okay, and ties in. This is all of Cleveland in this book. Are you ready for the other one? We have many. We have one on the Civil War because we have more Civil War burials than any other cemetery, okay, in the Western Reserve. This is on women in Woodland. And we have Eliza Bryant in this. We have Lucy Bagby Johnson. We have Carrie Clifford, the poet and writer and activist in the NAACP. Wow. Okay. And so we've got stories to tell, but those are coloring books for kids. And then we have this general book about Woodland Cemetery that talks about the different soldiers. And by the way, we started home delivery of mail right here in Cleveland because the women were coming and standing in line in a Cleveland winter. And Joseph Briggs, okay, head of the post office, saw this and he started home delivery here. You know, he's buried in Woodland. Okay, so
everybody's buried in Woodland.
We have governors, and like I said, we've got. You've probably heard of Jimmy Gale, the photographer for the Cleveland Press. He's buried in Woodland.
Wow.
And he was featured down at Western Reserve Historical Society in an exhibit on photography in Cleveland. And so he's buried in Woodland. Oh. By the way, Carl Stokes used to run. Okay, Carl Stokes used to box, you know. He used to run, okay, track in Woodland, as did Jimmy Bivens, the heavyweight.
Jimmy Bivens. I knew him.
And you've got people that still run there.
Yeah.
Because
I used to run the graveyard myself.
See?
I ran that graveyard when I was boxing. I ran that graveyard. But I never knew who was buried in there.
Well,
I mean,
that's
as far as Black people.
Yeah.
But I did know, what I did know was, and I'm kind of going off subject a little bit as far as Black people are concerned, but there was a whole area full of gypsies.
Oh, yes.
Now that I've seen those graves, seen the pictures on the graves and everything. Pops and cigars and bottles of wine and $5 bills. I know I collected some of those $5 bills as a kid. Yes, I did. I did. Who's going to walk past a $5 bill, whether it's on the grave or not? I mean, it's a $5 bill.
Well, you know? I think we're planning in the fall what they call the ghost tours, which would be in the evening, okay, or at least before it's totally
too dark.
And it would include the section of the gypsies.
Yeah, because I've been over there when it was pitch black. I've been all through the graveyard when it was pitch black. During Halloween, we would go over there and run through the graveyard. When we were children, we did all of that.
Well, you'd be surprised the number of people that are afraid to come in.
Yeah, well,
and we have all these free public events, okay, to educate. By the way, in June of every year, we used to celebrate it with Juneteenth, but I said, listen, everybody's doing Juneteenth now. Why duplicate the audience? We have Descendants Day, which you can come and find out about your relatives that are buried there, where they are, and everything else.
And I do have some friends that their great grandparents are buried there, and I knew them personally, and they buried right at the end of 66 in Scoville, the Taylors, and Papa Taylor and his wife. I knew them when I was a kid, when I was born.
You can look it up on the database that's on the website. Okay, just put in the name, and I think with Taylor, you're going to have many pages.
Yeah,
many pages.
Yeah, because their children are buried there also.
See?
Yeah.
And there are still burials, people that own plots.
Yeah, I was there this last summer. Two of my friends were buried over there, right on the Quincy side in the front.
Yeah.
And they're buried right close to each other.
And closer to the Quincy side is a woman who had a rooming house named Betsy Gould, and she was a station master in the Underground Railroad.
Wow.
Wow. They stayed at her rooming house. Yeah.
This has been a very interesting conversation about what was going on in my neighborhood, at the cemetery where I grew up around and played, and when we never thought that these people were there, and I've been so enlightened about what's going on.
They're there, and they'll still be there. We do not refer to them as dead people. I refer to them as our residents.
Okay, and they are, which they are. They are residents. Yes.
They are our residents, and each one has a story. And I think you could probably tell the entire history of Cleveland
through
at
that
Woodland Cemetery.
Yeah.
It was the second city cemetery. It opened with the first burial in 1853. It was designed by a New York landscape architect. They didn't call him then landscape architect, but he was a landscape architect. So it was like a garden cemetery. It had pavilions, it had fountains, it had a caretaker's cottage.
Yeah,
it had all of that. Okay, none of that's there anymore, but we have our gatehouse, and we are grateful for that.
Well, I do remember the caretaker's cottage. It was on the Quincy side. It was a white house on the Quincy side.
It's in Section 80 because I put our beehive
I remember
nestled in the foundation of that particular building.
I do remember when people lived in that house. Yeah, right inside. It's right inside the cemetery, right off Quincy side.
Yeah,
right inside the gate. There's a big white house there. Yeah, I remember that. So it had to be. I guess it was torn down in the late 70s, early 80s, or something like that. But I know all through the 60s and the 70s, the house was there. I saw it. That's when I grew up. So it was there.
So I encourage people to come down and start reading some of the signs up by the gatehouse and start looking at some of the information that they can do on a self-guided tour. By the way, this is on our website and can be printed off. It's of the Underground Railroad leaders. It has biographical information on each, and I'm going to turn it over. And it has a map on the back showing where each gravesite is.
Wow.
And all of these grave sites now have headstones. Thank you to foundations that supported us on our grant, to get headstones so they wouldn't be forgotten. Wow. So all of this is on our website, and let me show you this, at the very back. Okay, can you pan into the, and then on the front of this brochure, you see one of the buildings that used to be there that is no more. Okay, and so We've done the best we can as a all volunteer foundation to get headstones, to repair headstones that are in disrepair, and to make sure the community is educated, about all the wonderful resources there.
Well, Dr. Salem, I'm going to continue to educate the community about, the Woodland Cemetery. I'm simply amazed as to what's actually is going on there, and what you've done is great. You've done a great thing for our community.
Well, I'm educational outreach. I had a 40-year career as a college professor, and you don't retire, you still have to educate. And I made a commitment. I was going to stay in the community where I worked for 40 years. And that's how I have the connection to Woodland Cemetery.
That's how she has a connection to me also. She's actually my daughter's very first professor at Cuyahoga Community College. And that's how we met. So, everything's, it's all connected. It's all connected.
Yeah.
But we're running out of time now, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to thank you, Dr. Salem, for coming and sharing with us.
Glad to share.
I'm going to encourage people to come and take the tours at the cemetery. See if I can get some young people to come over and help kind of take care of the cemetery.
I want to talk about that. And we're getting old.
Right.
We need to teach at the same time. Okay, we're getting young people working.
Maybe some of these youngsters in the library that that hang around the library here wouldn't mind going down there if you show them and talk to them about it.
Oh yeah,
they'll probably be interested in going down there and helping, because a lot of them are.
Muscle.
Oh, you need some muscle.
I need some muscle.
A lot of these youngsters got some muscle now. A lot of them, they got a little muscle. But listen, this have been Positive Street Talk with Rick Moe of Rick Moe Productions and Dr. Dorothy Salem, the curator of the Woodland Cemetery. And I am so happy that we had a chance to talk, because I love my neighborhood. I love where I came from. And I'm just, I'm elated.
You're glad to learn something more about it.
Yes, I am. Yeah. But again, this is Rick Moe from Positive Street Talk and Dr. Salem. We're signing off now. Thanks for listening.